Last week, Harsha Ratner gave us an introduction to the four mind-turning verses, and he talked a little, didn't he, about how these verses are the kind of preliminary part of the 7-point mind training, which is a kind of teaching that Atisha took to Tibet. So really, these four mind turnings come out of the kind of Tibetan Buddhist kind of lineage. But really, they're just very practical. They're just very practical reflections that enable us to turn our life more increasingly towards the Dharma. And today we're going to look at the first of these, the precious human life, or as it's sometimes called, the precious opportunity. So I might use those phrases interchangeably, but yeah, it's kind of known as both of those. So just a quick reminder of what these four reflections are. So hopefully we'll have a first slide. Thanks, Ed. So this slide just summarizes what the four reflections are, and also the quality that the reflection in a way looks to generate. So the precious human life is really about cultivating a sense of kind of gratitude and appreciation. Impermanence and death, which Sartabhadra is going to talk about next week, in a way is about generating a kind of sense of urgency. And then the third reflection, karma, is about developing a sense of agency. When I say agency, it's about a sense of kind of taking responsibility for our own actions. And then the last of those, the defects of samsara, is about kind of sense of sort of not clinging, and I was going to say detachment, but it's not exactly detachment, but it's a kind of attitude of not clinging. So yeah, thanks, Ed. Yeah, so when the Buddha awakened, he saw everything. He saw everything in the world just as it is, and he reached this kind of pinnacle of compassion and wisdom, and he saw the kind of profound interconnection of everything, and he just responded to every situation with this kind of spontaneous compassion, and he always just knew what people needed. And I was thinking about this. That's quite extraordinary, isn't it? If imagine how it would be if we could see everything, just as it is, and we could see everyone just as they are. And imagine if we could just see the truly sort of interconnected nature of the world. Yeah, I think it would be quite something. Can we have the next slide, Ed? This is one of my favorite quotes. It's William Blake, from his poem The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, and he says, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. Yeah, so I really like that quote. And then I've also got a quote from the Buddha, which is on the next slide. Thanks, Ed. So the Buddha, describing the Dharma, said, "It is profound, hard to see and hard to understand, peaceful, sublime, beyond the sphere of mere reasoning, subtle, and to be experienced only by the wise." So thanks, Ed. Yeah, I like this this idea that the Buddha describing the Dharma as peaceful and sublime. And yeah, just to sort of, I always think that's a kind of really interesting use of words, because in a way there seems to be this kind of contradiction to life. You know, we see life through the very kind of narrow lens of our ego and our sense of self. And in a way, that is what gives life this inherent sense of unsatisfactoriness. It's like the world is just not how I want it to be. And the Buddha talked about it being like the ill-fitting wheel of a cart. So it's just like, you know, so it's like I just always have that vision of like this kind of bump, bump, bump. And in a way, you know, life can kind of have that feel to it, can't it? But also, and I guess this is a contradiction, there is also a sense in which life is really magical and beautiful and mysterious. And we all have this same potential for Buddhahood. Yeah, we all have that kind of potential to become awakened, and in a way, I think it's that potential that kind of draws us towards the Dharma. Bante talked about us all having this infinite capacity to develop as individuals. And of course, you know, we can all experience these kind of infinite qualities of metta and compassion and joy in others' kind of well-being as well. So this mind-turning reflection about the precious opportunity is not only about the kind of preciousness of life. It's also there's also something in it about our own potential. And I guess the question is always how do we keep in connection with this kind of preciousness and this potential that we have. Yeah. And it's not, of course, this isn't always easy to bear in mind, is it? We lose sight of our problem. We lose sight of our kind of potential. And I think I read somewhere once that we, like humans, are designed as like problem solvers. So I think in a way that leads us to seeing the world in a very particular way. Yeah. I was thinking this sounds a bit kind of morbid, but I was thinking recently that it would be kind of like an interesting exercise to imagine that I was about to die, and then to think, well, how would I summarize? You know, how would I summarize my life? Yeah, how would I kind of evaluate the life that I've led? And I was talking to a friend about this recently, and he said that, well, actually, it'd be quite good to kind of consider this, you know, consider this question from the kind of present. So we could consider it as, what do I need to do now to ensure that when I do die, I don't have any kind of regrets. Yeah, and I just thought that was just thought that was a kind of interesting perspective in terms of kind of making the most out of life. Yeah. So sometimes this first reflection is looked at alongside the second one, which is about impermanence and death. And you know, there is this idea that the only way that we can really enjoy life is to embrace the idea of is to kind of embrace the idea of death as well, which I don't think is I personally, I don't find a particularly easy thing to do, because death always seems a bit kind of abstract. Yeah. Recently, I came across a line of poetry. I can't actually remember the poem, and so I might be paraphrasing this, but I really liked it, and it was something along the lines of, "I know I shall enjoy death because I have enjoyed life," and I like that, because there's something, isn't there, about how we have to embrace all of our experience, the kind of, not only the pleasant but the kind of dull and the unpleasant. Yeah, yeah, and I thought, perhaps through this idea of embracing all our experience, there's something in there which is the kind of key to fully appreciating the kind of preciousness and potential of life. Okay, so I was going to move on to just another aspect of the kind of precious opportunity, and this is the Buddha talking about how rare it is to be born in the human realm. So this is from the Chigala Sutta, which is from the Pali Canon, and it's the Buddha describing the rarity of being born into the human realm. And, yeah, can we have the next slide, Ed? Thank you. So when the Buddha talks about a yoke is like it's like a kind of contraption that you fasten like an ox or something to a cart with. So just so this quote, just so to give it some meaning. Monks, suppose that this great earth were totally covered with water, and a man were to toss a yoke with a single hole there. A wind from the east would push it west, a wind from the west would push it east. And suppose a blind sea turtle were there. It would come to the surface once every 100 years. Now, what do you think? Would that blind sea turtle, coming to the surface once every 100 years, stick his neck into the yoke with a single hole? It would be a sheer coincidence, Lord, that the blind sea turtle, coming to the surface once every 100 years, would stick his neck into the yoke with a single hole. It's likewise a sheer coincidence that one obtains the human state. It is likewise a sheer coincidence that a Tathagata arises in the world. Now this human state has been obtained. A Tathagata has arisen in the world. Thanks, Ed. Yeah. So in a way, this passage from the sutta just highlights the kind of seemingly impossible odds that one is born into the human realm, and also that we have the opportunity to practice the Dharma as well. So just as when I talk about being born into the human realm, generally in Buddhism we regard there as being kind of 6 realms in which you can kind of inhabit. Yeah. And of course, as humans, we have these. Well, we're kind of unique, aren't we? In that we have this kind of we have this self-reflective consciousness, which means that we are aware of our own thoughts, whether we like it or not, and we can kind of examine and reflect on life in a way that other beings don't really. And it's said that the human realm, well, we know this, don't we? I was saying it. The human realm is the realm which is conducive to kind of spiritual development. it has the kind of perfect balance of unsatisfactoriness and pleasure, so that we're not kind of overwhelmed. We're not overwhelmed with suffering, but we're not kind of intoxicated by happiness as well. And of course, we may be a bit we may be a bit kind of agnostic about the idea of rebirth. But I guess another way of looking at it is we are all here today, or we were all born as a result of a truly kind of extraordinary kind of coming together of conditions, and that makes our life very precious. And I think often we can take our life for granted. We may think life isn't great. We may think our life isn't great, or we may think life generally isn't great. But there's also a sense in which we become what we turn our minds towards. We all know this, don't we? I mean, if we didn't have this, if we didn't have this kind of capacity, then we wouldn't practice things like metta bhavana, would we? So we want to get rid of ill will, so we practice metta. And of course, we can actively cultivate this sense of appreciation and gratitude for life. We can appreciate who we are and what we have. So one of the practices that supports this mind, this reflection, is practicing a sense of kind of gratitude and cultivating it in the same way that we cultivate say metta. And of course, personally, I think that we are inherently spiritual beings. There's something kind of deep within us that has that sort of spiritual desire. And I think often, like the materialistic world is actually quite it's quite kind of flat and sort of one-dimensional. So I think there's getting in touch and being connected with this kind of inherent spiritual quality within us, I think is key to kind of appreciating life much more. And of course, another aspect to this is that we are much more than just our sense of self or our sense of ego. I mean, when in meditation we kind of look inwardly, we can find a lot more than just this kind of small sense of self. So I think there's something in this mind reflection about being connected to our own potential. And being just trying to deepen our connection with the Dharma. I mean, we have this instinctive kind of knowledge, don't we, of what has real value in life. And I think part of the practice is moving towards that. And being curious, being curious around our practice, and cultivating a kind of sense of inspiration as well. So in a way, we can see our Dharma practice as a way of developing a kind of greater appreciation through life. Appreciation of life. And through mindfulness and metta, we develop integration and positive emotion. And as a result of this, we just become more unified. We become more whole as beings. Our thoughts and emotions become more in sync. And as a result of this, we become more receptive to the world. We become more receptive to the world we live in. And this, of course, changes our relationship to the world. Yeah, and I think again with practice, we learn to become more receptive to the to the beauty of the world. Yeah, so I think the preciousness of life uh, comes through finding a kind of deeper purpose and meaning to life. And it doesn't really, it's very easy to be kind of intoxicated by the world, isn't it? By to be kind of intoxicated by the shininess of the world. And that of course does have its charms, but really we need to be trying to find that kind of deeper meaning actually that comes through the Dharma and comes through things like friendship, love, meditation, and kind of aesthetic appreciation. So I thought I've just got a short reflection that I thought we could do, which is, and perhaps actually we could do this in a kind of meditative way. I'm just going to read this out. It's I'll put a link to it. Actually, it's by an order member called Vishwapani, but it's just a kind of reflection on the preciousness of life. So, thanks, Ed. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to read a short poem by a Tibetan chap called Tsongkhapa, which is called "The Human Body at Peace with Itself." But perhaps we'll just do this short reflection. So just closing our eyes. Feeling present. Here now, I have a chance to make something of my life. I have health, I have energy, I have the ability to think and feel freely. I have enough food and enough money to meet my needs. I live in a country that is free of war and many of the other difficulties people can face. I am not trapped in a negative state of mind like madness, craving, hatred, or depression. All of these things change, but while I have these advantages, I have a great opportunity. I have had the great good fortune to meet the Dharma. The Buddha taught it. It has been practiced down the generations. Thanks to my teachers, it has come to my country and into my life in a form I can understand and accept. I've had the good fortune to meet an effective Sangha whose members offer me guidance and friendship. All these conditions have made the Dharma a presence in my life and made its practice possible for me. Am I making the use of the opportunity this offers? How much time I waste, how much of my life passes in unawareness, how strongly my habits constrain me. I would be foolish to waste this chance. So let me commit myself to practicing as fully as I can. The human body at peace with itself. The human body at peace with itself is more precious than the rarest gem. Cherish your body. It is yours this time only. The human form is one with difficulty. It is easy to lose. All things are brief, like lightning in the sky. This life you must know as the tiny splash of a raindrop, a thing of beauty that disappears even as it comes into being. Therefore set your goal. Make use of every day and night to achieve it.